Hello, welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. I'm Joe and every Wednesday I do whisky video reviews. I've been doing them for a year now, so this is my second year of doing them. I'm going to continue with some Mackmyra whisky. It's the last Mackmyra whisky I'm going to be reviewing for a while. And this is the Special 10, the 10th special edition they've done. They do a series of these. They're kind of available in the specialist stores. And this is called the Kaffegok. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Kaffegok. K-A-F-F-E-G-O-K. And it's bottled at 46.1%. Some of their specials are cask strength, some of them are 46.1, some of them are, there are a variety of strengths, if you like. And the special thing about this one is that it's a standard Mackmyra kind of recipe that they use for the whisky, but they finish it in casks that previously stored whisky spiced with freshly roasted coffee beans. So it's a really unique finishing. It's the first whisky I've ever tried that's used this method of finishing it in casks that had whisky spiced with freshly roasted coffee beans. Lovely, just a classic light gold colour like a lot of the Mackmyras actually. And if you have tried any of the Mackmyras, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just leave me a comment on the video or on Twitter. Go to @WhiskyTube on Twitter. So let's give it a nose or two. Now you almost immediately notice that kind of coffee cask influence. So kind of there's a slight bitter kind of dark coffee note. Can you imagine if you're in a house? Imagine if you're in a house and someone's making coffee, and you're in bed and you wake up and you get that kind of slight hint in the air, and you can smell that someone's making coffee. Well, it's like that. It's kind of there, but it's just distant. A little bit of kind of dark chocolate as well. Again, that'll kind of come from that coffee cask finish. As it's opening up, kind of a freshness is coming into it as well. Getting a nice kind of quite bready note. Kind of like home baked bread. Maybe a slight lemon sponge. There's a kind of a floral freshness about it. Kind of fresh floral barley. And again, it reminds me of a lot of the other Mackmyras. It's very light, it's very delicate, it's very elegant. Bit more chocolatey coming through. There's a kind of appley fruitiness that comes through too. Kind of like fresh green apples. It's a very complex nose. It's quite contrasting. Like on the one hand, you get this kind of dark coffee, the bitter chocolate, and then you get that kind of freshness, kind of fresh apple, floral. So it's very contrasting. It makes you kind of think about it. It's not a simplistic nose. It's really contrasting, really complex. All right, let's give it a taste. Right. Ooh. The first thing I notice straight away is the mouthfeel. Really kind of fudgy and creamy for the texture of the whiskey. It's definitely one of the kind of creamiest whiskies I've actually tried on the palate. The texture's buttery. Flavour-wise, we're getting a bit of fudge, a bit of buttercream, slight kind of toasty note. Let's give it another try. Remember, as I always say, first taste of a whiskey is always the marker. A lot of people are put off, they drink a little bit of whiskey, and if they haven't drunk much whiskey before, they drink it, and they might just knock it back, and all they get is burn, and they don't get much flavour. You need to tell them, first taste is always going to be the marker, and hold it in the mouth. And then the second taste, that's when you'll get a lot of the flavour. So if you're trying to convince your friends to get into whiskey, like I do a lot, because not a lot of my friends like whiskey. A lot of them do, some of them don't, my family don't. So anyway, tell them the first taste is always the marker, second taste, then they'll get a lot more flavour. With that in mind, let's give it a second taste. Now on the second taste, I'm getting some really well integrated oak. Now what I mean by integrated is oaky flavours, especially with bourbon cask, are kind of vanilla. And when I mean integrated, it means it sits well in the kind of whole taste that you get. So it's not the overriding taste. So there's kind of vanillas there, a little bit of spices there as well. It's almost that kind of classic Mackmyra taste that I'm kind of growing to expect now. It's that kind of light vanilla spice. Again, kind of fudgy, caramelised pears, apples again, bit of freshness, a little bit of honey. Definitely said there's a little bit of honey there. Right, let's give it a third taste and final taste for the finish. Now on the third taste, more the spiciness comes through, getting a very, very slight wood smoke note. Fruitiness comes back in again. And then on the finish as well, that kind of coffee and the chocolate note comes back through. So a little bit of that kind of mocha chocolate from the nose comes through. I think this is a really, really good little whiskey. Came out quite recently as well. It's a special 10 Mackmyra Kaffegok. You should be able to find it in some decent specialist shops. I'm going to give that a solid 8 out of 10. Really, really good little interesting whiskey. Light, complex, bags of flavour. Finish kind of medium length, kind of short to medium. I think that's put down to the actual age of the whiskey. But really good. 8 out of 10 for the Mackmyra whiskies. And again, a huge, huge thanks to Angela Dorazio, the master blender at the Mackmyra distillery in Sweden. I've absolutely loved tasting and reviewing your whiskies, and I really hope that you've enjoyed watching me review your whiskies. They're really good, and I massively, massively appreciate you sending me them. So yeah, I'm going to finish this little bit off, have some dinner, and I will see you next week, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.